Once again, welcome to this webinar about streamlining the organization with the user guides. So today, we're going to be going through some of the idea or the background for why is this needed, and sort of how to do this in terms of the internal processes and what's needed, and also to give you a practical demonstration of how this can be done within the Power Platform for those that are of course using the Power PPM solution for project and portfolio management. So first, the why is this necessary? Why do you want to have this streamline the organization, or using these user guides? So usually, what is the issues that you have? You have a lot of different information, different places. You have a lot of different people that have this different information, and you need to have this as easily accessible for the users as possible. So just to go through the agenda for today. What we're going to be looking at is first of all identifying the current issues and pain points, the main areas of that, and then the solution. Of course, we're also providing that, creating the internal overview, improving and updating your processes, and then applying these where needed. And afterwards, of course, also the demonstration of how this works practically in the Power Platform. So the current issue. So what we see a lot for the companies that we're working with is there sort of three main areas. One is there's the sort of the difficulty in aligning on the internal processes. There can be a lot of different places or different departments, areas of the organization that have a different idea of how these processes are supposed to work, or how they're run. It could be that there's a document that's been shared that might have existing in sort of older versions on different team sites or SharePoint sites, or simply in local folders. Then there's also the issue with the simply lack of visibility and awareness. It can be difficult to sort of make it be applied where the users actually are. If a user is sitting in a project management system, or sort of sitting where actually they're doing their work, they don't have easy access to the guidelines or the how-tos of how they're actually supposed to be doing this, the governance processes, etc. And then there's also just the issue, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's simply just outdated processes. There are things that can change, that have changed, or you want to make changes to it, and making sure that all of these are updated across the organization is usually a sort of an issue that we see. That's a quite difficult task, and we're asked about how to sort of effectively solve this. So the solution, there's 3 steps, at least that I'm proposing. So the first issue, of course, you want to create sort of an internal overview to see, okay, where are my processes right now? Where is the knowledge base? Who knows about these processes? Who are actually controlling those? And where are they stored? Where are they accessible? How do you sort of how do you access those, and how are you supposed to access those? Then, of course, the task itself of actually updating or improving these processes. So it could be that you already have all your processes in place, and then you need to sort of make them either just accessible for the user specifically, or update them, or simply create new processes. It could be that there are always some of these processes that are that people know about, but they're not written down per se. So it's also a case of making sure that once you have these processes that need to be applied, actually that you want to have, there's a standard way of doing things, standard operating procedure or rules, that you actually make sure the different employees are following those. And then there's of course the step of actually applying these guides and processes where needed. So making sure that they're in the right place, that they're accessible at the right time when you actually need the process. You don't have to search through a lot of different folders or processes and read through unnecessary information to actually get to where you need. So for the first step, creating the internal overview, what you want to do is making sure, so if you can identify sort of where these processes are, is it a certain team, is it a certain department? Usually we see it's also a certain person that has a knowledge about how the process is supposed to work. They were either appointed by someone or self-appointed. In some cases we see that there's a person that simply is responsible for maintaining this the structure or for updating or documenting the governance or the processes, and sort of identifying where these are, where these people are, or where this information is sort of the first step. So also finding out, where's the knowledge base? Is this kept in do you have a Wikipedia? Do you have a shared OneNote? Do you have a SharePoint site? We usually see it as a SharePoint site where this is kept, but it can also be, is it a PowerPoint document? Is it a Visio document? All these things you need to be aware of how sort of this is all kept. And then also part of that, identifying so which users should actually be accessing this information, because instead of having one standard SharePoint folder, perhaps where all of the information is kept, and then it becomes quite cumbersome or burden to find the information. You have to filter through not the information that is not necessarily relevant for my department or for me, for my role. Then you can say, okay, are we able to filter this somehow? Then there's of course, the next step, then being able to improve and update these processes. So saying that you have either using your current information or documentation as is, or updating it where needed. So it could be that that you actually are quite happy with how this looks at the moment, and it just needs an update. It could also be that that you identify that there's sort of a lack of even having the documentation available for the users, and therefore you need to update these, and also of course identifying then these gaps here. So saying that it could be that there are some users that are always trying to find information in a certain place, complaining about that, or there are users that are simply not aware that this information exists. Could it be that that there's a visibility issue? Does it need to be more readily available for these users? And then, of course, the third step is the concept of then being able to apply these specific guides or these processes. So this is again now identifying, as you've looked at, where is it actually that the users have an issue with being able to access this particular information, or where this information at least should be. And then saying, okay, so how should this be presented to them? Where should it be presented to them? Are there different teams that have different needs here, or does it actually make sense to have a one shared structure for all this information? Because then again, it increases visibility in that case, and make sure that everybody knows this is where you find this information, instead of trying to identify it on a lot of different folders or in SharePoint sites. Then there's the idea of creating it context-aware user guides. So making sure that instead, as I mentioned previously, instead of having to go through a lot of different information to only find the specific information that is relevant for the user in a specific situation. I'm in gate 2 of an IT project. What do I do here? What is the governance here? Do I need the steerco approval? Do I need to get in contact with a certain person? Which steps do I need to go through? So instead of having to read through all other types of projects and all other gates, then you can quickly identify that. And then there's, of course, also ensuring upkeep. So as I mentioned previously, somebody is usually responsible for updating these. It could be different people in different teams. So having a process for that, making sure that these people are actually updating it and have an easy way of going in here and updating this, so they're not having a local document that is being updated, but perhaps not shared with the correct users. And then to the demo portion. So because there's a lot of extra things that I can talk about in regards to this, but I want to also just do it as I'm demonstrating how this actually works in the Power Platform itself. So you can see here, and then there could also probably be some questions that arise based on this. So I will share my other screen here. Okay, and here we're looking at so this is our pre-sales environment for you showing our Power PPM solution, and here we have the welcome page, of course, and then how we're actually accessing the sort of the guides or the help guides when we're in the Power Platform is there's this question mark here in the top ribbon, and if we click on this, it says help, find help and training. It will open up this new here tab on the side with or column on the side here with some information. So this can be configured in a number of ways. So we can see first of all there's some different sections here that could be collapsed. So these could be collapsed by default. Right now they're just we chose that they're always opened as you open this help section. And you can add a lot of different types of information in these. For example, there's a video. So this is a YouTube video that's been put in directly here that can be played from this tab here or from this help section. Then we can see there's some text here which is marked as a link, and that is a link in the sense that it opens up this guidance. So if you say that where can I view my projects, then it opens up here this text box that points towards the initiatives, which are your projects. So if you click on this button, then you can see and create projects. So if we do that, click on this. One thing that now becomes also that we should note here is that this help guide doesn't then navigate to another page. So right now we're looking at the help guide for the previous section we were looking at. And because these are content dependent, then if we close this panel again here and we reopen it, then it will now have updated based on the new context that the user is in. So this is also important that it's not just one simple guide that works for the entirety of the system or the context you're in, but every single time you're in a new area or your new part of what the user is doing, you're able to create these context-dependent guides. So here we have there's another video. It's a new video that's been added here. We can see also the layout is a little bit different. And we can see that says here that we have an initiative overview, and then there's a new link. And this takes us to, shows us that if we click here on the title, the active initiatives, we're able to see the different types of views. If we close this, and this will show us both the general views that are created for users, and also you can see personal views if you have created your own personal views. And we can also, there's other types of ways of creating these links. So one of them was we have just this little pop-up that just displays with what we're trying to look at, and there's also this text box where you can add more information about what's happening and add a little bit of extra help or extra guidance to the users. So let's click on one of the initiatives, for example, and then again we can update the help guides and see that it again becomes context aware. So now we're seeing that what is all the information or the help information I can get relating to the initiative itself. And here we have another example. You can so we have these sections, so you can have these multiple sections within sections as well if you prefer that. There's the option of just having, if you want to see, okay, well, the checklist, I can quickly identify that based on my help guide. So no matter what I'm trying to find, I can quickly identify that. You can make as many of these as you want to here. But what we also want to do here is try to look into, okay, how can I edit these? How can I sort of as a person that's responsible for updating and maintaining these processes, how do I use this? And it's quite easy. There's these 3 dots here next to here in the top. If we click on that and click edit, then we get a lot of these options for being able to edit this help guide. One thing to be aware of here is that it's possible for you to control who can edit this and who can just read this. So it's possible to have some users, admins or special super users, that can edit these help pages, and then most of the users are able to just view them and not make changes to those. That's a quite typical question we get. But let's just do a little test of the different types of things we can add. So of course, besides adding text, and it's as simple as just here, we're adding new text to this area. It's also possible to add, if you want to have a numbered list. So typically, if you're saying, as part of the governance process, you have to go through these different series of steps or checks, then we can add this as step 1, step 2, etc. Or add it not as a numbered list, as a bullet list. It's the same principle. Then it's possible also to insert links. Let's just remove these here, these tests we've made. So we're cleaning it up a little bit. So adding a link, for example, if you have a SharePoint site where you're keeping all the general information, you have, for example, some of the processes that you want to make available for users. So let's take an example here. We have a SharePoint site where I have some documents. Maybe I have some either some governance or some user guides. So I can take this link to the SharePoint site. Just going to copy this and then add this click here on insert link. Then I'll put in the URL, and then I can change the link text. So it's not just a URL, but I can say, so this is a link directly to the SharePoint site with governance and user guides. And I can make sure this opens in a new window, so it doesn't take me away from also being still in the PPM system. So let's go ahead and insert that. Let's also save this and then test this out. So if I click on that, it now takes me directly to the SharePoint site where I can go in, find the different. So if I have some Visio update or a governance model here for how to go through the research project, I can quickly access that. So, but let's go back to editing this. Oh, I closed it instead. Let's go back to editing this. So it could also be that you want to make sure that this is accessible more directly for the users. So it's possible, as we saw before, with inserting either a video, but you can also insert an image. If you have a sort of an image of how the process looks, that you could insert as you have a thumbnail that would perhaps provide this more easily, so the user can see this directly. Then it could also be possible to use that. We also see that added quite a lot. Then there are some of the other elements here as well. Besides the link, we saw this example with the balloon. So this was when we're, for example, clicking on the finding the projects. There was this the text box that popped up. So here we can say, so what is the link text? Let's just see what all these elements are. The title. So let's do this for the strategy area, for example. Access the strategy area, and the title of this is strategy, or let's say the strategy area. It's possible for portfolio managers to work with the strategy area. And then there's this drag to the element, and what this means is that this is where it's going to pop up when we then click on the link. So if I drag this over here to where it says strategy, so now the link has been made here, and if I click insert, and we click save here on this, And here we have the link. The link is called Access to Strategy Area. That was the first text box we filled out. Then the title here is Strategy Area, and the explaining text is that the portfolio managers can work here, and it pops up next to the strategy. And the same works for same sort of scenario works for these coach marks. You can also use this strategy area. And then we drag this to this area. So this is a little bit of a shorter way to sort of guide the user, their attention to the relevant areas. So if we want to use that instead, we can do that. And then we have the strategy area, and then it shows up with this little the ring that pops out and the coach mark that is pointing to strategy. Now, one of the things that we didn't have or that I didn't include here is of course that some might add, so in case of using AI or Copilot for being able to have access to these guides, what is sort of the best practice, or what is the way that would be recommended for doing this? And the short answer is that it pretty much depends, of course, on how this information is available. Usually, because the information is in some sort of a SharePoint site. Then using Copilot can of course find these. If you have these documents, if you're searching for that, Copilot will be able to find that. But finding the information within the documents can be a little bit tricky, depending on sort of how these documents are created. Some of it could be found within, of course, a PowerPoint, but it also depends on how easily accessible it is, or sort of how you're searching for it. If you're saying I want to find out what I should do in stage 2 of a specific type of project, then using Copilot might not be the most easily accessible way of doing that, because filtering out how that sort of works is not always or wouldn't really work as easy. If there was a different either a wiki or a different way that you had the information accessible, then perhaps you could use Copilot. But we would recommend in most cases that you're saying that the information should be specifically available for the users in the context that they're in. So instead of trying to ask Copilot or trying to find the information in different places, it should be obvious for the users always where the information is. So sort of saying that we're trying to search for it is already a step after that, where information isn't obviously available to them. So that would be the primary recommendation, to make sure that it's already easily available. So let's just see, is there any questions so far regarding this? Yeah, gonna see if I can find anything in the chat, and also let's just give people a few minutes to. So there's a question about, is it possible to have the help guide refresh automatically? So unfortunately not. So this is just a standard Power Platform way of that it works. That we have to close it each time. Part of the reason why it works this way is that there could be some of these things that you're doing that are sort of within the same area. So if you're looking at a help guide and you're trying to follow some steps, it could be that it has directed you to click at a certain point, and then you want to actually have the guide still open while you're looking at that point, and then control yourself when you're closing it, when you're reopening it, and when it has changed. So it's not possible to have it automatically refresh or have it closed when you click on something new. So that's one thing to be aware of. But the good thing about it is that then it's always context dependent, that when you open it for new. But of course users have to know that they have to close it and reopen it, perhaps if they're experiencing that they're not really looking at the right help guide for what they're actually working on. Yes, there's a question about making the help icon more visible, so having its own button. So it is a standard feature of the Power Platform. So it sits here. So it's not something that that we're able to control in that way. But we usually find that once users know it's there, then it's pretty much second nature that okay, we go in and then we find the help guides here. But of course, there needs to be a little bit of showing the users where to find the relevant help. So yeah, it will always be here as this question mark, and it's not possible to create any other things for it. But it still beats having to try to find it in lots of different other places. Okay, so there's a question about having problems with adding a picture. Okay, well, let's see here. So if we want to add a picture, insert this image. Yeah, so okay, so if we have an image URL, so I actually don't really have do I have a good example of an image URL? Perhaps I can just if I just try to upload one to the SharePoint site, perhaps. Let's see here. See if we can make a quick example of how this would look. Because that's a good question of how to make sure that these images are actually uploaded correctly. So maybe it's actually, yeah, so the code actually, so what I could see was if I create this, if I have an image here, so I just took an image from Wikipedia on a guide for playing on the, I don't know how this is pronounced, but if I took this link directly to the SharePoint site for the image itself, that didn't work. So it had to be an actual image link and not a SharePoint link. So this is not in itself an image link. This is a link to accessing the SharePoint site. So it's probably because there's some rights involved in that instead of having. So this should always work without having user rights involved with it. So that was probably the issue you were facing, Susanne, for this. Another thing I also just wanted to add is that a question we usually get is, so when we're working on these user guides and we have the users accessing the system at the same time, how can we avoid sort of having a situation where if we're adding something new or changing something or removing sections, that users are using the system at the same time and we're that's causing issues. So what you can do is that because these are environment dependent. So if you're creating this on your production environment, then you don't see that on the test environment or the development environment, and of course the other way around. But what you can do is that you can do this on the test environment, for example, have a user that's able to create a guide there, and then you can copy that information over directly. And I'll just do a not too quick technical dive, but just show you that this is added under a table. The table is called help page. So this is available for those that have access to the tables in the Power Platform. And then there's a table, or then there's a row in this table added for each of these areas that you're working in, and we can then open each of these rows. And then all the information is stored as HTML code. So you're able to take this HTML code and then simply copy it between the different environments and then make it available, and it looks completely the same. So that was a short information about how you can copy this between environments, or how you can make sure that you're not working on something while the users are dependent on it, or maybe have a draft available for updating a new process. I'm sure everyone on the using the pre-sales environment will be happy with this image here of the dulcet tone, perhaps. Let's see. So this is specifically for model-driven apps. For Canvas apps, as far as I know, it's not possible to have these help sections in the same way, at least. But there's of course other opportunities. It's possible to do other things in a Canvas apps where you're able to do. Because you're able to customize it so much more that help guides are available in a different way where you can do much easier pop-ups for that. So yeah, as far as I know, only for model-driven apps. Then to just to wrap up, that these help guides here, they're available for you can control which users are able to edit these help guides, so that most of the users are just able to view these and not make any changes to it, and make sure that these are context aware. And of course, this is context dependent. And of course, this webinar, the recording, will be available for you to watch afterwards if there's anything you want to rewatch. Of course, reach out to us if there's any additional questions. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone for joining here and tuning in and the questions. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you very much.